All right, now we're going to be flying through this material as quick as we can. That way you folks get at least 30 minutes to write, if not more. So where we're going to start today is page 106, this graphic organizer. And I'm positive some of you folks probably got a chunk of information written down, but I did want to make sure that every single one of you has a response, has evidence, because this chart is going to be pretty much your guide for how to respond to your prompts today with this quiz over Harrison Bergeron, okay? So your in question, when you popped in, like 2 to 3 sentence summary of Harrison Bergeron. So I'm going to ask 3 folks to go ahead and just share 1 sentence summary what happened in that short story. Any volunteers? Can I go in? All right, Chloe, get us started. 1 sentence that summarizes Harrison Bergeron.
Harrison Bergeron was not a story. It was a story about trying to have equality in the world, but it doesn't everywhere. They try to do.
All right, so Harrison Bergeron was a short story about a society that wanted equality for all. And instead of everyone being equal and people being brought up, it started breaking down the society. All right, can you give us a second sentence for that? Grant, how about you? Second sentence about Harrison Bergeron?
Harrison Bergeron was a 14-year-old that was against it, and he ended up getting, he didn't care about the rules, and he ended up getting possessed.
Okay, Harrison Bergeron was a huge 14-year-old, and he decided to break against society's rule. He ended up getting 2 people killed. All right, third, final sentence? How about you, Elijah? Third one? About Harrison Bergeron? What about just from the beginning, the section that you did get 3?
I thought people were not smarter than anyone and better than.
Okay, good. The idea of equality. No one is smarter than anyone else. No one is better than anyone else. They're on the plane or even level field. There you go. Now I got it. All right, so if you go ahead and watch the screen, there's going to be some stuff popping up. You can copy it down. Some of you may already have responses here, so that's entirely up to you if you want to copy the info down as well. Evidence-wise, you might want to take it because just a quick glance, I didn't see a whole lot of evidence written down as of yet. So the first question asks, what idea was the society based upon? And you folks already took care of that. It's the idea of equality for all the citizens. And the evidence is strikingly obvious in that very first paragraph when they talk about the 211th, 12th, and 13th Amendments that made those rules set in place. The second question asks, what did the society sacrifice to make everyone equal? Well, they sacrificed individuality. Freedom of expression was gone. Yeah, they sacrificed the extraordinary, 100%. So some evidence that kind of proves this point, I've listed a series of paragraphs. And the reason why I selected those paragraphs, you saw what characters were saying or what characters were doing that showcased how their individuality was no longer there. So being masked because of your beauty, being given a radio transmitter to cover up any serious thought, which is getting rid of your intellect. The third question, how was this utopian society really transformed into a dystopia? So how does something so good bring about something so frightening? Well, being the same, it's not natural. Every single human being is given different genome, has different genetics. Even identical twins have something different about them. They're not 100% equal. And with that suffocation that they were bringing into their society, they also brought about serious punishments for those that would not follow the rule. So I put specifically paragraph 26, and that was where George really talked about with his wife Hazel, well, if I break the rule, this is the consequence that I have to pay, and it's not worth it. So that's just a reference point to answer that particular piece. Last question, what problems were created as a result of making equality? Now, you can think of a lot more problems than just the ones I have listed, but it's an idea to get you started. We have the idea of rioting that happens at the end of the story, where a few out of the many try and do something different, and they're executed because of it. We have the death of Harrison Bergeron and the ballet dancer who he was dancing with. You have the idea of fear being instilled in the citizens. If I don't do this, my punishment could be a severe fine. My punishment could be jail. My punishment could be death. Okay, we have anger that's happening from people that don't want to follow the rules. And probably the biggest item is the idea of dictatorship. Diana Moon Granthers wasn't exactly someone who was for the people. She was very much you follow this rule. If you don't, take a foot. I have a shotgun. That's my solution. So in terms of evidence for that, here's a huge series of paragraphs. Now, I haven't given you specific quotes whatsoever. That's going to be up to you. But I've given you locations of where you can find this information. So when you start writing your quiz today, this will be kind of a guide to help you where to look. That way you're not kind of floundering through all the pages of the short story. All right? Now, what I'm going to have you guys do is you're actually going to rewind a little bit here. And what I'm going to ask you to do is go ahead and flip back all the way to page 76. And you're going to see this chart, and it should look familiar to you. Back when you folks wrote your definition essay of what defines a hero, you learned about the concept of an embedded quote and the formula for how to make one. Before we talk about the formula briefly, do me a favor, write yourself that note about coherence. You can write it next to the chart or in the My Note column, wherever you think it's going to fit best. Embedded quotes rely on transitions. And when we have transitions, we're able to formulate coherence. So we get flow, we get a natural rhythm in our writing. So utilizing an embedded quote is also something that's going to help us gather coherence. So embedded quotes have 4 items or 4 elements: the transition, a lead-in, the actual quote that you use, and the citation. So instead of you folks practicing how to write these again, instead we're just going to do a really quick review. I'm going to show you 6 different quotes. Only 3 of the quotes that you see are properly embedded, and 2 of them are written in a formula that you really haven't seen before. All right? So go ahead and keep your springboard on page 76 as a reference point, and we're going to go ahead and see how well do you know your embedded quotes. So all of these quotes that you're going to see are from Harrison Bergeron. So when you see them, you might want to just give yourself a quick little reminder, hey, this is an example of a quote. Not saying you have to, but you might want to. All right? So here's the first possible embedded quote. When George realizes Hazel has been crying, he simply says, forget sad things. Want to get page 106? And here's example B. Forget sad things is an example of what George says when Hazel cries. All right, take 10 seconds. Decide with your family which one is correctly written. I like to say definitive. It is this. This is what's happening. All right, so I heard it from most of you. A is the correct embedded quote. It follows the TLQC format 100%. We started with the transition when we had the lead-in, George realizes, we have the actual quote, forget sad things, and that citation. Now things are going to get a little bit different. You're going to see 2 more quotes, but neither one follows precisely the TLQC format. However, one of them is written correctly. All right, so here's example A. Harrison got to have freedom at last. Harrison tore the scraps of his handicap, yada yada do. Vonnegut 104. And here is example B. Harrison tore the scraps of his handicap harness, yada yada do, allowing him full freedom at last. Vonnegut 104. Now, something to think about. The TLQC format does not need to be 100% right for your quote to be embedded. As long as your quote is adding coherence, it's a complete sentence and nothing is left making you go, huh? You will have an embedded quote. All right, 10 seconds, talk with the family. Which example do you think is correctly written?
Yes.
All right, now neither one of these really follow the TLQC format 100%, but the one that is written correctly, because it adds coherence, it flows, it's a complete sentence, it's B. That's the correct embedded quote. So something to think about when you're actually writing these out, maybe you don't have to follow the TLQC format. As long as you incorporate those elements and your sentence is correct and it flows, you're good. All right, here's one more example. Same idea, which one is correct? Neither one follows precisely the TLQC format. Here's letter A. Harrison Bergeron society is based on equality. Nobody was smarter, better looking, yet a do. Or letter B. Nobody was smarter, better looking, or yet a do. In Harrison Bergeron society that's based on equality. Remember, TLQC was not used specifically with either one, but one of these has coherence. Which one could it be? So the answer will be revealed in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here's the correctly written quote. It's B. B is correctly written. Okay, now remember that in terms of embedded quotes, you don't necessarily have to have the transition starting first. As long as you incorporate everything, as long as the sentence is coherent and complete, you're still good. All right, next what I'm going to have you do is actually fast forwarding the book. We're going to leave embedded quotes to the side, and we're going to go to page 107, please. 107. I'll keep the light off because we're going to make a few very quick notes. So your quiz is going to be incorporating Harrison Bergeron. It's going to be incorporating embedded quotes. The last thing is something called active voice. I'm not spending a lot of time on it because a lot of you usually do this. You probably just don't realize that it's a type of literary function. All right? So we're going to highlight 2 things, and we're going to write 2 notes. This is the first thing I'm going to ask you to highlight. It's the definition of active voice. Ready? Here it is. What active voice does is it puts emphasis on who or what is performing an action. So, Logan writes with his highlighter. That is active voice. I am telling you who exactly is performing the action. Now, the other type of voice is called passive. Here's the definition of passive voice. Passive voice always contains some form of be or to be. Elijah is writing in his text. That's passive voice. All right, now there's 2 notes that I'm going to have you take regarding one more way to consider what is active versus passive voice, and that would be this guy. Sometimes it's kind of tricky to think, okay, I have to put an emphasis on an action, on who is performing the action. So instead, I like to teach active voice as present tense and passive voice as past tense. So when you're writing your piece today, your quiz, you're going to use active voice, meaning everything is going to be in present. You're going to stay away from using past tense verbs, was, were, has been. Stay away from those. All right, once you have this note taken down, keep your Springboard open to page 106, 107, and then I'm going to ask you to go ahead, take out a separate sheet of paper, and put your name on it. While you're doing that, I'm going to hand out a green set of papers to your family's table. Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. All right, now your families have a set of green handouts that is what I will be showing on the PowerPoint. The handouts are meant to be with your shoulder partner, so you share it between the 2 of you. I'm going to do a brief walkthrough of what is this writing quiz, and the rest of the time will be entirely for you. Okay? Now, what's on the screen you folks have as part of the green handout? So regardless if you're looking at your handout right now or what's on the screen, show me with your hand or your fingers, how many paragraphs is this quiz? 3. Very good. So the directions that are on the screen, but also the green handout, each paragraph poses a question or a prompt. You answer that question, that's what your paragraph's all about. Now, in yellow on the screen, and I know on your handout it's not yellow, how many embedded quotes are you supposed to have for the quiz? Solid. 3 quotes. And the last thing it says is make sure to use present tense, not past tense. That way you're using active voice. Now what you can do is take that green handout, flip it over, or watch the screen. I've provided for you folks 3 possible embedded quotes that you may elect to use in your quiz. Now, if you randomly take them and plot them in your paragraph, but they don't really fit what you're talking about, you won't get any credit for them. So they are a reference point. Some of you might use them because they work with your line of thought. But again, if you do plot them in there and they don't really fit what you're explaining, you won't receive credit for them, even though they're written correctly. Okay? All right, last little thing I'm going to have you look at. This is on the screen. It's not going to be at your table. Before you folks turn in your work, and this will pop up again, what you're going to be doing is highlighting your 3 quotes, and you're going to circle 2 examples of active voice. You'll see this pop up again when we've got about 5 minutes left in the class period. And the last little word, things to consider. This is a quiz. It is due at the end of the period. No one in your family is able to help you, neither am I. So the rest of class period is for you to work on this. You probably will be okay with 25 minutes. You can probably get through it all. All right, good luck, folks.